Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? It's a little late in the day, so I want to make sure we still have some energy. We're between you all and the reception, which is not the best place to be, but I promise you that the story we have today is so worth listening to. My name is Caroline Brown. I'm the Chief External Affairs Officer at the Medical University of South Carolina, and we are the only solid organ transplant center in the state, and that's going to become very relevant here in just a minute. As an SCbio board member myself, I've also had the privilege to see the many positive advancements in the life science industry. And one thing that remains constant is the positive impact that all of our organizations and institutions have on the lives of real South Carolinians. I'm about to introduce you to someone who is a testament to that and who is a personal inspiration to me. Brittany Howard is many things. She's a Charleston native, much like I am. We both went to James Island High School. She's a mom of 3, a wife, a Clemson and MUSC alumna, a beach lover, a workout fan, a world traveler, an advocate and volunteer, a philanthropist, a nonprofit founder, and even a physician assistant. She's a provider herself. But after the birth of her 3rd child a few years ago, she became a patient in need of a transplant. So I invite you to view this video of my friend Brittany's story, and then she's gonna share a few words with us today. Please bear with us, as we've yet to maintain dry eyes anytime we have heard Brittany's story, and it's especially emotional for me as a friend of Brittany and her family, and as a new mom. I have a 3-month-old at home. So Brittany, and to your family, thank you for being here and for sharing your story, and now everyone join me in watching the video.
This is Brittany. She and her husband Lake are raising 2 lovely boys.
I was pregnant with my 3rd child. Found out that day that we were having a girl. So I've always kind of thought of having, wanting the relationship that my mom and I have with the mother-daughter, and so I think I was just thrilled to be able to finally have a daughter and get to experience what it's like to have that close relationship. It was perfect. She was beautiful and healthy. I'm gonna get emotional. And amazing, and we were so in love. Sorry. We were so in love. I felt like my life was, I had everything I ever wanted and dreamed of. 2 healthy boys, a beautiful, perfect, healthy girl. It just felt like life couldn't get any better. I went when Ellison was 2 days old to her pediatrician for her routine newborn visit. I couldn't barely speak. I was speaking very broken. I was so short of breath. Lake, Ellison, and I went to MUSC main ER. After the EKG came back abnormal, they got a chest x-ray, which showed my heart was large. The ER doctor that day told me that my ejection fracture was 13% and that I was going to be going to the MUSC cardiovascular ICU. I was devastated. I was just, I had a 2-day-old baby, sorry. And I just wanted to go home. Michael Craig, he was the attending on that night, and he was the first one to really sit us down and tell us that this is for real and this is serious. I would have to have a transplant because there was really no other option for me.
I was walking into her room that evening and her mother and her husband at the bedside. But more striking was that several-day-old baby sitting in her arm, and that's an image that I'll never forget.
I was too sick that they wouldn't let me go home to wait for a transplant. I had to remain in the hospital, so she lived with me. They fortunately realized that I needed her more so than she needed me. And she lived with me from the time I was admitted when she was 2 days old until I got my heart. I found out that on our wedding anniversary that they had found me a heart. We all knew it was my only chance at survival, so we understood that. So we were excited, but we also understood that this was not just a heart and you're done. This was a new journey and a new life for us. First memory afterwards is waking up and asking about all my kids. So I wrote my donor's family about 2 weeks post-transplant. And again, I just wanted to know who it was and thank the family for giving me my life back. I wouldn't be here today without MUSC.
No? There we go. All right. Thank you, Caroline. I do want to apologize for the emotions and the tears that you're sure to see from me. I've told this story several times, and I live this journey every day, but the emotions don't seem to dissipate over time. And as you saw in that video, this story isn't just about me. Sorry. It's about a tiny baby at the center of it and her 2 big brothers at home waiting for me. My heart story began 3 years ago at the age of 32. My husband, Lake, and I found out we were expecting our 3rd child. We had 2 healthy boys at home, age 12 and age 2. We thought this would likely be our last baby, so we were secretly hoping we'd have a baby girl. We had just moved into our home, so we planned a housewarming party, a Memorial Day party, and would announce the gender of our baby surrounded by all of our friends and family. So Memorial Day weekend 2018, we found out we were indeed getting our little baby girl. I remember sitting on the couch with Lake that night and telling him that life seemed perfect. We were happily married, we had great careers, just built a beautiful home, had 2 precious boys, a baby girl on the way, tons of friends and family who love us so, and we were all happy and healthy. Shortly after that weekend, I developed a cough. It started as just a dry, nagging cough. As Caroline mentioned, I'm a physician assistant, and at that time, I had practiced as an ENT PA for 8 years. In ENT, we commonly treat a chronic cough secondary to acid reflux. So I was pregnant and naturally thought maybe this was reflux causing my cough. I talked to my OB about it, and she agreed we should start an aggressive reflux regimen. Unfortunately, that did not change my cough. Over the next several months, my cough became progressively worse. It became so severe that I was pretty much coughing constantly. I couldn't sleep. I could barely see patients because of my cough. I talked to my OB about it, and she thought perhaps I was having some pneumonia. I also developed significant shortness of breath, so severe that moving a load of laundry from the washer to the dryer, I'd have to sit down afterwards to catch my breath. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, which was something very new for me and I'd never had with my prior pregnancies. I couldn't sing to my 2-year-old at night because I didn't have the breath to get the words out. So my OB decided to treat me with antibiotics and steroids for that presumed pneumonia. She didn't want to get a chest x-ray because I was too far along in my pregnancy. I took the medication, and that, again, did not improve any of my symptoms. I kept telling myself that as soon as I had the baby, everything would get better. I thought maybe I was tired from still working full-time, having a 12-year-old and running him around from school and sports and all over town while I was still chasing a very active 2-year-old. Well, on September 18th, 2019, my husband and I went to the hospital. I was in labor with our baby. After a wonderful, beautiful, natural delivery, our little Elizanne Frances Howard was born. She was beautiful and healthy and perfect. We were so in love. We stayed one night in the hospital that night, and then we went home for the first time as a family of 5. At home that night, things worsened for me. I couldn't sleep at all. If I tried to lay flat, I literally felt like I was drowning. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed and just staring at Elisanne all night. I thought maybe my hormones were out of control and I was having some sort of anxiety that I had never experienced before, so I kept telling myself to take a deep breath, that I was not truly short of breath. The next morning, Lake and I and our 2-year-old and Elisanne went to the pediatrician for Elisanne's newborn or 2-day-old well visit. At the pediatrician, they took one look at me and realized that Elisanne didn't need help, that it was me who needed to see a doctor. So we went straight to the ER at MUSC that morning. My mom met us there. I assumed I'd get a chest x-ray and it would show I had lingering pneumonia and I'd be given some antibiotics and steroids and be sent home to my family. Well, unfortunately, that is not what the chest x-ray showed. Rather, it revealed I had an enlarged heart. From there, they ordered an echocardiogram, which revealed my heart was barely functioning and I was in severe heart failure. I was told in the ER that I would be admitted to the cardiovascular ICU. I was devastated. I was transferred by ambulance from MUSC main ER to Ashley Rutledge Tower MUSC cardiovascular ICU. When I got there, I was met by what seems like hundreds of nurses and Dr. Michael Craig. Dr. Craig told my family and I that I needed to go straight down to the cath lab to have a heart pump placed. I was terrified, not for myself, but for my baby. I was her mother, her comfort, and her source of nutrition. I exclusively breastfed, so I had no bottles or no formula. The nurses reassured me that they would get everything they needed from the NICU so that my mom and my husband could care for her while I was away. While in the cath lab, I was unable to receive any sort of sedation because I was too sick to do so. So as I lay there on the table with the heart pump being placed, fully awake and aware, all I could think about was her. I was planning my conversation with my nurses and doctors to try to convince them to allow her to stay with me. When back in my room, I asked my male nurse, Peter, what they were going to do with Elisanne. And he told me they quickly realized that I was not going to do well without her, so she was going to be able to live in the ICU with me. I realized having a 2-day-old baby living in an adult cardiovascular ICU was unheard of, but I was elated. After that, I had the heart pump placed for the next 6 days. When you have a heart pump, you are laying completely flat on your back. You cannot bend at your waist. I'm completely immobilized and basically just bedbound, laying flat on my back. I was desperate to continue to care for my daughter, so I continued breastfeeding every 3 hours around the clock while I lay flat on my back with more cords and leads and IVs and monitors than you could imagine. It was my only way to care for my baby. Otherwise, my mom and my husband had to carry the weight, which was very heart-wrenching for me. From the beginning of my admission, my doctors continued to tell me how severe this was and that the only way I may be getting home was with a new heart. I was in complete denial because my entire focus was on Elisanne and getting home to her 2 brothers. And at the time, I really didn't feel too poorly, and I continued to joke with my doctors that I wasn't actually that sick, that they just needed to let me go home. After the heart pump was removed after 6 days, my physicians tried several IV medications to try to improve and strengthen my heart. After 12 days in the hospital, it was time for me to go back to the cath lab to recheck my heart to see if any of the medications or the heart pump had made any improvements. I knew that if I came back to my ICU bed with what's called a swan catheter, which is a giant catheter that sticks out of your neck and leads down to your heart, I knew that was a bad sign and meant that I had not improved. Well, unfortunately, I did return to my room with that heart catheter. I remember seeing my mom and my husband and telling them I couldn't speak. I remember seeing my nurse, Sarah, who was my age and had a young daughter at home with tears streaming down her eyes. She knew what this meant for me. Dr. Brian Houston came into our room that afternoon and told us that I indeed did need a new heart, and that was my only chance at survival. So on October 3rd, I was listed on the heart transplant list. The way I felt that day, I hope I never experience again. I was not mad or sad or scared or questioning why me. I was emotionless. I was a shell of a person. The next day, I had to start weaning from breastfeeding in preparation for my transplant. Because I had to wean so quickly, I developed a breast infection called mastitis, and I had to be delisted off the list for 3 days as I received IV antibiotics. Finally, on Monday, October 8th, I was strong enough to be relisted. This week, my heart started going into ventricular tachycardia, which is a fatal arrhythmia which causes all the nurses and the residents to rush into your room and prepare to shock your heart. It's a very unnerving feeling. As I said before, I really hadn't been feeling so poorly, but this week things changed. I began just being very weak and fatigued. I didn't want to eat, and I could definitely tell that my heart was not doing well. All along, my prayer had been just to get home. I just need to see my boys and my daughter again. This week it changed. It was simple. I needed a new heart. That was the only way I was going to make it home. After being on the list for 5 days, it was my husband and I's wedding anniversary, and I told him for our anniversary I need a new heart. Well, as you saw in that video, at 11:52 p.m. on the night of our anniversary, I received a call from the transplant coordinator who said, "Brittany, we have found you a match. Try to get some sleep tonight, and we'll take you to the OR in the morning." Lake and I cried. We cried tears of happiness because we realized this was my only chance. We cried tears of sadness and fear because we knew what this meant for the rest of our life. I did not sleep that night, but rather I stayed up writing letters to my children and to my husband, telling them my love for them and that I would be home. I never doubted that I'd make it home. The following morning, on October 13th, I kissed my husband, my 3-week-old baby, my mom and my dad, and my brother and sister-in-law goodbye as I was wheeled off to the OR for a new heart and a new start. After several hours of surgery, I successfully received my gift of life, and I was reunited with my family. I spent the next 4 days in the ICU, and then I was transferred to the cardiac floor where I remained for the next 5 days. I did so great, I was finally discharged back home with my family. I was there for 1 night, and then I had a routine heart biopsy scheduled for the next morning at MUSC. Unfortunately, after that biopsy in the recovery room, I had a seizure secondary to my anti-rejection medication. I had to be readmitted to the ICU and stayed in the hospital for an additional week as my team tried to get me started on a new anti-rejection medicine. But finally, on Halloween, October 31st, 2018, after 41 long days in the hospital, I was discharged and truly reunited with my family, where I've remained ever since. I think that was the happiest day of my life. Life since post-transplant has been amazing. I am so grateful for the new set of lenses through which I get to see life. Life is more precious. Every memory, every moment, every time spent with my family and friends, I cherish more than ever. Physically, I'm doing outstanding. I have 0 limitations. I'm able to keep up with our very busy and active lifestyle and all these children. I'm very active in the gym. I'm not a boastful person, but I feel like because I have a transplanted heart, I'm allowed to say that I'm kicking tail in the gym. I am feeling amazing and doing very well. My passion post-transplant has been to help other transplant recipients and their families. Transplant is hard. It is a huge emotional and financial burden. And so I've just launched our nonprofit organization called Bless Our Heart, where we try to emotionally and financially support transplant recipients in my community. As equally important to our mission is to support MUSC Heart and Vascular Center so that we may be a world-class cardiology center right here in our state. When reading about SCbio and its mission to grow the life sciences in the South Carolinas, I feel very excited. I think about my time at MUSC and the wonderful care I got there. As a South Carolina native, and more specifically a Charleston native, and an MUSC graduate, I'm proud to have this hospital in my hometown. And I look forward to see how the life sciences continue to grow in our state. Transplant is not a one and done. It is a new way of life for me and my family. My day-to-day life looks different. My future looks different. My drugs are hard on my body. I'm immunocompromised and susceptible to disease. I'm at high risk for cancers. My team has determined that the source of my heart failure is a genetic condition, which means someday my kids may be affected. I am a success story. I defeated heart failure, but I do have a long road ahead, as well as all other transplant recipients. My kids may as well. I say this to tell you that we need you. We need medicine to continue to evolve. I am so thankful for where I've been, for where I am now. But I'm excited to see what the future holds for transplant recipients and their families. I am forever grateful to MUSC, my physicians, my doctors, my donor Joshua, and to all of you who are doing the behind-the-scenes work to provide my physicians with the tools that they needed to keep me alive then and continue to do so now and for the rest of my life. So I thank you. Memorial Day weekend 2018, my life was perfect. Our life is better now. We understand just how precious it is and don't take a day for granted. Thank you.